Oh, great, great.
Yeah.
But you are not on camera.
Okay, my camera is not visible to you.
Yeah, you are not visible on the screen. I don't think.
I see.
Yeah, now. So both young guns are given opportunity. Raj Kumar and you are rocking.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, usually this kind of opportunities are given senior professors and professors.
Yes.
Had you lunch? Seems you are in department.
Yeah, I prepare for myself to attend early. So.
Okay. There are participants from other states too. West Bengal, Kerala.
They're all listening what we are speaking. So
Yeah, yeah. We are very open, no?
yeah. Anyway, so the last, I think the last group yesterday, the group is bit of majority Tamilian. I think
Tamilians, yeah.
diverse. How many? 35. Oh.
37, Roji. 37. One person, I think he left, it seems, for some of his personal reasons.
Okay.
Now the strength is 36. Yes, sir. Yeah, please. Okay, sir. Sir. We'll start now. Yeah. Fine. It's okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, I think we can start now. I think all participants joined, it seems. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of BDU HRDC, I'm very happy to welcome my friend Dr. Srinivasa Rao, head of the Department of History, Bharathasan University. He is such a young and dynamic person. It is novel ideas and thoughts. Also, he's a great academician and researcher too. He is very known to be in the area of history of science and technology. And I would like to mention one of his novel idea. Like he used to conduct an weekend cycle tours. That's very popular among our university. Most of our scholars they used to join, and every weekend he used to take scholars and students and to nearby villages or somewhere else. It's a long trip. It's really good for health. And of course, the cycling is preventing a lot of cardiovascular diseases, and it increases the good circulation of blood and lungs. It's good for lungs too. So he exercised such a whole idea. In fact, Dr. Srinivasa Rao is appointed as a coordinator for BDU cycle. It's a free cycle scheme. A program is there in our campus. Like who were visiting our university to maintain the eco-friendly, they used to given the cycle to the entire campus. That is one of the novel idea. Because of it, I can say it's a brainchild of Dr. Srinivasa Rao, I can say. So it's such a very nice person. And also, he made a lot of changes. Normally, if you think the history department, and most of the students may get reluctant to join there. But Dr. Srinivasa Rao, he made such a interesting changes in the syllabus. Like he used to conduct an UPSC training camps, and also he invited such a great visionaries to have interaction with the students. So with these novel ideas, and many of them they got interested to join in a history department. Even me too had a discussion with the last week, and it was very interesting. So I'm happy to see him this platform. With this, I welcome Dr. Srinivasa Rao. Now I hand over the session to one of our participants. Maybe he can give a very brief introduction about his academic credentials. Please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, hearty thanks to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. This gives an immense pleasure to introduce our eminent speaker, Dr. Srinivasa Rao, who is a faculty member and head of the Department of History, Bharathidasan University. His area of specialization is History of Science and Technology. He received his PhD degree from IIT Madras. He has nearly 12 years of teaching experience. He is a member of the Society for the History of Technology USA. And most importantly, he became the international scholar of the Society for the History of Technology USA during 2008-9. He has a number of publications and presented several invited lectures in different seminars and conferences. Today, he will talk about socio-cultural aspects of higher education. So on behalf of all the fellow participants, I would request Dr. Rao to deliver his lecture. Sir, the stage is all yours. Please proceed.
Very simple and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, I have to see my face for a long time because I'm not a fan of PPTs. So therefore, the UGC HRDC imposes you to keep on your camera and also my camera.
Sir, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Just once, I think there was some problem, seems to me. I'll just contact Dr. Srinivasa Rao. Rao, sir? Rao, sir?
Yeah.
Can you check your connectivity? We got
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because mobile data I'm using.
Okay.
So every 1 GB it asks you whether you wanted to switch off or you wanted to switch on. Anyway, so I have serious doubts on India's ability of educating itself or allowing itself to be educated or allowing the education to educate India. In a sense that I see education, higher education as an individual which is acting on its own with its multiple functions to transform the societies. One can say, you mean to say that education emerged on its own. That is not what I'm saying. There is certain amount of independence even if you created education. There is certain amount of independence, certain amount of certain interesting characters to higher education, which are unfortunately being controlled by the very society that creates it. So in a sense that we don't allow the education to perform its functions, scared of understanding its abilities, that it might create dramatic changes in the society. Those dramatic changes in the society might dismantle the socio-cultural structures and systems built for a long time, and those socio-cultural structures and systems are very essential to keep the culture alive, quote unquote. So to say that India's higher education for a long time, if you look at the amount of change that we see, one can say like, what the hell are you talking about? There's a whole lot of change you can see around. Yes, there is a whole lot of change, but is that the change that we expected? Is that the change the higher education is capable of? I don't think so. So what I'm saying is that from 1835 onwards, if we we believe that higher education is introduced in India in 1835. Modern, will also let us use the word modern. So modern higher education is introduced into India in 1835 with a certain ability of democratizing the education itself, democratization of higher education itself. The pre-1835, if there is higher education, it was not democratic, we all know. So 1835 is a point where democratization of higher education has taken place. But such a modern higher education had the ability of dramatically transforming the society. But if you look at Indian society today, from 1835 to today, I would say the changes are ignorable. So the changes are ignorable. What changes are quite minimal, because we see the continuity of the systems or cultural, social systems or cultural systems which are unacceptable, inhuman, cannot be agreed to, or cannot be allowed to continue into the present or future. So they continue simultaneously, their continuation into the present and future simultaneously, despite being dismissed as unacceptable, need to be understood in a sense that we have not allowed the higher education to perform its functions. You compare yourself with, many times we compare ourselves with the societies which are, culturally undemocratic. Instead of comparing ourselves with societies who are culturally democratic, socially much more democratic, politically much more democratic. So that hypocrisy is actually one of the reasons why we keep ourselves in a situation where we justify ourselves that look those dismissed systems and customs, socio-cultural or religious, their continuation into the present and the future is essential. We use our education, we use our intelligence to justify their continuity. This is very serious problem, but we don't see that. Most of us are part of that process, justifying the continuation of the unacceptable socio-cultural traditions into the present and future. Most of us are part of that process. We don't realize. Even if we realize, we essentialize the culture. Essentialization of culture or justification of the culture, even the unacceptable culture, by the higher educated, not someone who is uneducated and who do not have the enough ability of understanding things or justifying them. It is not that. It is the higher educated who try to justify the unacceptable socio-cultural traditions and let them to continue looking at the kind of irrationality or illogicality dancing around this country in various ways. One has to come to conclusion that one is not happy. One should not be happy the kind of or the amount of change that took place. That should have, if we have allowed the, if we have given the freedom to higher education and its abilities of bringing change, if we have allowed the higher education to do its own functions, it should have changed the society dramatically, and you would not be seeing four to five guys holding one girl and cutting her tongue off. So this is a sort of society we are living, and we need to ask questions on whether we have allowed the higher education enough to perform its functions. So what are the functions, social functions of higher education? First of all, it promotes thought. As soon as you talk about higher education, a job provider. So we start from the third function, probably fourth function. We should be starting from the first function. The first function itself is promotion of thought. Then that would lead to, promotion would allow you to understand the truth. That could be social truth, that could be economic truth, that could be cultural truth, that could be natural truth, that could be physical truth. So the higher education will allow you to understand the existing reality. in one word if you wanted to say, or one phrase if you wanted to say. It allows you to understand, it equips you to understand, it gives you enough ability, capability to understand the existing reality. So that existing reality is combination of various truths. As I told you, it could be physical reality, it could be natural reality, it could be cultural, it could be economical, it could be social. So all these realities could be understood by a higher educated person if he or she are allowed to promote his or her thought, or he or her were given enough opportunity to understand the reality, because understanding the reality is not free, it is also controlled. Each and every individual is not free. Our systems, educational system itself is very controlling system. It does not allow the individual to think freely. So therefore, I would not say that individual who believes that at various levels, even in higher education, are free to think. They are not free to think. So therefore, the very first social function of higher education is being controlled by not allowing to think independently. Understand? So that if the first function of the higher education is controlled, then then how come the second social function, second important social function would take place? It will not. So, second social function, according to me, is that understanding the reality, understanding the existing reality, human reality, natural reality, physical reality. So thought is controlled. Thought is controlled. So when your thought is controlled, there is no opportunity to understand the reality. When there is no opportunity to understand the reality, societal transformations would not take place. Societal transformations, when societal transformations would not take place, then human society would remain as it is at some point in time, like medieval times, ancient times. Okay, so that thought control is very dangerous process or procedure in India, as well as in many orthodox societies throughout the world. So thought process is one of the milestone or one of the first important social function of higher education. Unfortunately, that is being controlled in this country. So many some disturbing sound is coming. So then after the second social function, the third social function, as I told you, transforming the society. And after transforming the society, if higher education failed to transform the society, or the individuals did not do anything to transform the society, that higher educated society becomes meaningless. Then in the process of creating wealth, then the third social function, fourth social function would be creating wealth, working for the human progress. This would come probably at the third stage, or as a fourth social function or third social function. But the first two important social functions of the higher education is promoting thought and understanding reality, and that understanding would naturally lead to the transformation of the societies. All these processes need not have to go step by step. They can simultaneously happen. All these four processes I talked about. One is thought promotion, another is understanding reality, societal transformations, and contributing to the progress of the human. All these things could, that is generation of wealth, generation of employment, importing skills, all these things can also simultaneously take place. But if you look at, we believe that these are all simultaneously taking place. The amount of employment, if you see simultaneously, it is taking place. So what is your complaint? My complaint is that Hathras case, Hathras rape case. Hathras rape case is a defeat of Indian society. If you call Indian society as a civilized society, Hathras rape case is a defeat of Indian society, not 1, 4 to 5 individuals. Hathras rape case in Uttar Pradesh is a perfect example to criticize the entire Indian society, that it's stuck somewhere in time, or it is keeping some sections of the society in time, like in medieval times, in ancient times. It is not allowing each and every individual of the society to come into the present or come into the future. It is, keeping them in time, in a backward time, by allowing them to not to change. So this control of the change, control of the thought and control of the change is also simultaneously happening. So what is the politics of controlling the thought? And what is the politics of controlling the change? So this we need to understand. So this is very much is connected to the present day social realities. So promotion of social thought is a first social function of higher education. If you try to understand the Indian society, to what extent we have allowed the minds to be trained? What way we are training our minds in higher education? Yesterday, one of the participants asked, is our syllabus is suitable to train minds independently, or is our syllabus is allowing the thought to flourish in a single individual who is going through higher education? I have to say that it is not the problem of syllabus, it is the problem of culture, higher education culture. So about that we talk about in the last section anyway. So promotion of thought has been one of the important characters of the civilization, human civilization. If you wanted to call ourselves as part of the human civilization, we should not have any control over the thought. Who controls the thought? Why thought is being controlled? We have reached a stage, higher education, if you talk about PG, post-graduation is around what, 19 years of age, 20 years of age, is it not? So if that is the stage, by this stage the student is coming to a college or a university for PG, we just check their level of independent thinking, the level of freedom they have. You just try to understand, try to observe, try to survey where the kind of set of students you are getting to your department, what kind of independent thinking they have. Are they able to allow their mind to function? So another participant yesterday has also asked, this is not the question of training the student to think independently at the PG level. It is the question of allowing the general culture to allow the thought to be promoted from the very beginning of the human life. So I also agreed with him. That is what it is. Like tabula rasa, you must have heard about John Locke's theory of blank slate. Blank slate theory is that it says that when human born, they're born with a blank state, or thing that means it's a mind which with less information. When biological scientists would not agree to that, they would say, look, when the kid or the fetus inside the body of a womb of the mother, she would be pumped with some amount of knowledge. So we do not agree with the John Locke's theory. Fine, that is fine. But however, the existing reality and the information that is pumped into the fetus when he or she in the human body, mother's womb, is different anyway. So through the sensory organs, we try to get some information once we come into this universe. Now, as soon as we come into the universe, as like vultures, as like cultural vultures, we just go on to the kid, and a whole lot of our cultural priorities, social priorities, from the grandmother to mother, they get busy with trying to teach a whole lot of things. Whether that kid has got the ability of understanding or not, we do not know. These culture vultures are social vultures. get busy in teaching the culture, this, that. It is not the teaching emotions or this, that, but it is mostly we focus on culture. What a kid has to see. We start showing the photos of not the individuals, but of the gods or the the deities, family deities, and all that stuff. So our priorities immediately gets activated, and we start attacking the kid, which is considered as a human rights violation, a child's human rights violation, but we don't see that way. So therefore, the thought, attacking the thought, or channelizing the thought in a particular fashion that is wanted by an imposed culture. A culture imposes certain priorities on each and every family or individual, let us say. If you are part of a Hindu culture, if you are part of a Muslim culture, if you are part of a Christian culture, a society or the culture as a whole force, or religious community as a whole, it already imposes you certain obligations. It forces certain obligations on you. Those obligations will automatically be get transferred onto the kid who just born. Some 10 days kid, or 20 days kid, or 1 month kid, or 2 months kid. So you don't see that you are violating the kid's rights. You said it is your responsibility to impart that culture. Okay, so therefore, the thought control starts from the very beginning of a human coming into this world. Then it goes on, the focus, the amount of focus these people, and then the open society also, not only the parents, but also the open society. If you look at the open society always tells you, they just go out of the home, you see a whole lot of cultural symbols in and around the open space, and you start seeing them, and then you'll be told by your parent, if you're walking along with your parents will keep on telling, like, this is what it is. And by the time the kid has got the ability of asking questions, then all these people who do not have answers of certain very interesting questions get stuck up and try to suppress them with answers which cannot be backed by any kind of reason. So the point I'm driving to is that religion is the first agency that wants you to control the mind of a human. Then comes the state, then comes the corporation, or neoliberalism, capitalism. These three forces wants humans to be followers, humans to be submissive. Humans cannot be challengers, humans cannot be asking questions, humans cannot be seeking answers. So these three forces, one is religion, another is state or the government, another is capitalism. All these three would not want human to be a thinker. He or she, all these three want he or she to be a follower or submissive person. Otherwise, all these three would have to continuously keep facing challenges from the people who have the ability of thinking, because higher educated, by the nature of very idea of higher education, is a challenger. Higher education is a challenger. He would not or she would not like the status quo. Status quo is like this is the answer I gave you some 100 years ago. So that answer remains so. You don't ask questions on any answer I have given to you. This is what religion. Religion gives you some answers. It does not want you to raise questions on the answer given some 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or 1000 years ago. Because religion builds itself on irrationalities and illogicalities. So, if those illogicalities and irrationalities are questioned, then it crumbles down. So therefore, it protects itself by covering or protecting the very idea of non-existent, or what it says is final, by holiizing the very idea of God or what it says. Both the what it said in the religious text, the content of the religious text, and the idea of the God, both are unchallengeable. They become unchallengeable. The unchallengeability is acquired or given, is an ascribed unchallengeability. This unchallengeability is given through the holiization. Holiization is like, you cannot challenge because it is unchallengeable. God cannot be questioned, is it not? So that unchallengeability keeps it locked forever. Many of the scientists would not agree to that. They would keep on asking questions on things that are not suiting to their commonsensical logic, rationality. So they keep on asking questions. So those questions would create troubles to those systems or structures which are built on illogicalities and irrationalities. So all these three, even capitalism is one of the immoral forces of the world has ever seen. Unethical force was world has ever seen. It would not want the citizen to which it is serving, or to whom it is robbing, from whom it is robbing, would not want what it is doing to be understood by a common citizen. So capitalism is the same thing. So all these three agencies, for my understanding, are the controllers of the mind. So the thought controlling goes back to the age of faith. J.D. Bernal. J.D. Bernal is one of the famous historians of science, or philosophers of science. He has written 4 volumes on, I think, 4 important volumes on science and history. He has divided the entire world history into 2, based on reason and faith. So from the 4th century AD or 5th century AD to the 12th century AD, it is age of faith. And from the 12th century AD, of course, it is European, primarily based on European history. And from the 12th century AD, it is age of reason. So we are in the age of reason. But look at ourselves. We are also, despite being in the age of reason, we are also strong believers in theory of creation. If we are citizens of age of reason, our belief in theory of creation could have been lesser, or could have been totally gone. But simultaneously, we are believers in theory of creation, or also simultaneously we believe in theory of universe, which is absurd for my understanding. Which is very absurd. So theory, there was a time where theory of creation, which is same for all religions, is dominating the entire human society. That is from 4th century AD to the 12th century AD. Renaissance has brought the human back into the center of the story, while 4th century to the 12th century, human is not center of the story. Invisible is the center of the story. When the invisible is center of the story, then you would not have any answers to the human realistic problems. Is it not? That was the case. J.D. Bernal tried to see how the age of faith is declared 100% ownership over the human thought and body. Age of faith, religion has declared the 100% ownership over the human body and the thought. So therefore, historians call the organized religions, what J.D. Bernal called organized religions. Organized religions are They have a structure. They have one language. They have one God, one book, and hierarchy, organizational hierarchy. So they are all available. So that's what J.D. Bernal call organized religions. So these organized religions are very powerful, notorious, criminal, violent. So these organized religions have declared ownership over thought and mind, thought and body, and they have said like you have no right to answer questions on what you have in your mind. So what is given to you by the religion, you have to take it. So you are not you're not the owner of your life. You don't understand what you are doing. You are acting in darkness. So all these things, very popularly. If you look at religious speeches, you would see them. Oh my God, they are doing what they don't know what they are doing. So this is all, we see it, we laugh at them. We see that there is no meaning in that. But still we see that it is very dangerously being propagated and being told to the educated, quote it, quote, educated. That is what I don't understand. To the educated, this kind of thing. How the hell you don't know what you are doing? Can anybody tell me how do you know? How don't you know what you are doing? From the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, you know everything why you are doing what you are doing. That is what is, after all, human. Natural rationalism is inbuilt in human, but that natural rationalism is robbed by the religion, and it is given it to some invisible agency, saying that on behalf of you, someone is thinking, so you stop thinking, don't worry what you do. So you are not doing, you don't know what you are doing. There is someone who knows what you are doing, so therefore you have no right to understand what you are doing. That's quite criminal. But we just normalize that. That criminality, unfortunately, gets normalized when regularly listens to such kind of speeches, you get normalized. So my worry is that how you call yourself educated when you don't agitate to a speech. Not only people from Christians, all people do everything in the Midya, Maya, in Hinduism is there. So therefore, everybody does the same thing. So, but the person who goes through such kind of a training of the mind, they don't get agitated when they listen to such kind of stuff. In fact, one of the reasons why we are less religious, most of us probably less religious, some of are deeply religious, some of are semi-religious. So all these things we are not we are not supposed to be religious, quote unquote, but we should be rational. If we are all in this 34, including me, 37 or something. So we are all supposed to be rational because that's what we're supposed to be. If you are semi-religious, if you are deeply religious, the entire education you had is meaningless. You can counter my statements and arguments, that is up to you, but that's what it is. Anyway, so the point is that the semi-religiousness is a compromise by the intellectual human. Understand? You are very intellectual. You are trying to be intellectual, but you force yourself, you compromise yourself to be semi-religious. This is what is compartmentalization of human into a double split personality. You are rational as well as religious, which is unfair, which is absurd. But then we normalize that, after all, we are humans. We cannot have answers to each and everything. This is where the scientist Thomas Aquinas comes in. Anyway, so come back to that later. So in the age of faith, Christianity is dominating the mind theory of creation. It is imposed on it, and that is the case with most of the rest of the societies also. So wherever the organized religions are dominating the human thought, they are dominating to the core. So and even after that, if you look at the amount of tussle when the Western society went through between the science and faith, rest of the societies could not go through. That is the reason why the level of secularity that you see, level of public rationality that you see varies among societies. If you try to understand the Western society, we have to see that we have to agree whether many of us say like it is a decadent culture, this, that, so therefore we cannot praise them, we cannot glorify their culture. But what one has to see is that the level of secularity, the level of humanism, the level of rationality, public rationality is much more higher in the societies which subjected themselves to the scientific scrutiny. The societies which controlled the scientific, their culture, their social structures from the scientific scrutiny, that kept the socio-cultural systems away from the scientific scrutiny, continued to be more religious, more orthodox in socio-religious cultural systems. So that is certainly one has to agree. Many people today there is the anti-European and anti-Eurocentric argument saying that European culture is unfairly claiming superiority over the rest of the cultures. So there are certain tendencies of such kind. I do agree with that. But then we have also supposed to realize that what we are, what we have been, what we are. So we would not be seeing a black is attacking a black, white police is attacking a black person is a racial problem. Okay, but a girl is shot or a boy is killed in a public space because they're a different caste and community. They should know these two bodies are destroying the cultural systems or social structures. It is when you compare these two, a white person is attacking a black person, and an upper caste person is killing a lower caste person because the boy went into a relationship with a lower caste girl. So these are not comparable in a sense that race and caste may sound similar, but the notoriety, human notoriety in the caste system is much more higher compared to that of the racial. So we have to focus much more here on the caste notoriety than that of the racial notoriety. So that is where Western society, to some extent, though racial problem was well under control for a long time, but racial problem was Afro-American problem. America is mostly American, but rest of the European societies, the racial problem is not much more open. So the public rationality, the level of secularity is much more higher in the Western society because Western society subjected itself to the scientific scrutiny for a long time. That is from the Renaissance even till today. But if you look at the rest of the societies, subjecting themselves to the scientific scrutiny is much more lesser. So then avoiding that scientific scrutiny is political. You have to understand why we have evaded ourselves, kept ourselves away from the scientific scrutiny. Is also political. It's not natural. It is political. If the scientific humanism, enlightenment, secularism, scientific rationalism has the ability of dramatically transforming the Western society, why the same, if it is imported here, did not have the same ability and capacity to transform the rest of the societies? What is the reason? This is where I come back to the first point I made. We have been controlling the scientific rationalism. We are controlling the secularism. We have been controlling humanism. We are not allowing them. All these, scientific rationalism, secularism, humanism, are all these part of the higher education. All part of the higher education. If you are a higher educated person, all these are inbuilt, supposed to be inbuilt. You're supposed to be finest human. You're supposed to be a rational person. You're supposed to be a secular person. not only you becoming all these persons, unfortunately, instead of having these multiple functionalities of a higher educated person, these are the natural multiple functionalities of a higher education. That is, you are secular, you are rational, you are finest human, you are so these are the things. But then instead, what is happening? You are religious, you are casteist, you are undemocratic, you are authoritative. These are the multiple functions of a higher educated person. So which means it's a failed society. It's a failed system. Higher education is unfortunately a failed system. Not because it is naturally do not have the capacity or do not have those kind of functions that it is performed in the Western society. It has the same functions, but politically we controlled it. Politically we controlled it. So the 1964, 1986, both these education policies have recognized that it is important to promote the thought fearlessly, vigorously. You have to engage with the thought vigorously, fearlessly. Spirit of thought must be given, promoted. So these things are not, I am saying that the Indian society did not understand. It has kept into the policy notes in 1964, 66 and 1984 higher education policy notes. Government has realized, higher educated who are making the policy have realized that these things have to be there, very important for higher education. But if you look at the higher education today, we believe that employment is first, then the rest. Employment is the first, then the rest. I am not denying that the employment is very important. Employment is very important, certainly, but that is not does not actually take away from the primary responsibilities of higher education. If the primary responsibilities of higher education are ignored, are taken away, are controlled, one would have to believe that we are hypocritically controlling to meet our political agendas, social agendas. Okay, so thought promotion is in India is very cleverly controlled. Thought promotion is very cleverly controlled. If thought promotion is allowed, a woman would question the domination of the male, an Adivasi will question the domination of the mainlander, minority would question the domination of the majority, a Dalit would question the domination of the upper caste, a working class will question the domination of the owning class, the rest of the society would question the people who are suffering from the state, quote unquote, if at all they are suffering, they will question the state. The consumers or the sufferers under the capitalism, they will raise questions to the corporation. So all these questions need to be eliminated. So the higher educated person must be busy working. He or she must be a busy worker instead of a person who is having time to think. So if you are allowed to think, then you will be raising questions on the irregularities, abnormalities. So therefore, thought need to be controlled. So the agencies I've talked about are very busy. They very cleverly invest their thought on what way, which way to control the thought of the general society. Therefore, these agencies go to the extent of eliminating the individual who is becoming a challenge to their authority. Who is becoming, it could be groups, it could be single individual. Narendra Dabolkar was killed, Govind Pansare was killed. What are the reasons? So one or the other way, they were trying to challenge the pre-modern socio-religious structures. So that is very important for an higher educated person. Higher educated person naturally a natural challenger to the status quo. A natural challenger to the status quo. If you don't ask questions on visible abnormalities, abnormalities are very visible to you. but you don't raise questions. But many people are not, as I say, I made a statement earlier. It is not said by me, it is said by M.N. Srinivas, sociologist, along with Martin, I forgot his name, Martin. Both of them have made a proposition or a theory that compartmentalization of human life is into the rational and irrational self is very successful. Very successful intelligence, symbol of a successful intelligence of a hypocritical human. So they successfully employ the intelligence in order to segregate themselves, to eliminate the contradiction between the reason and faith. So that compromising and trying to eliminate the contradiction does not mean contradiction do not exist. That is your comfort, and then so once you not all of them. I am not saying that not all of them are doing the same. There are plenty. If there are, say, lakhs of atheists in this country or throughout the world, there are lakhs of rationalists in this country. Their contradictions are very well alive. So they respect the contradiction between the reason and faith. So they try to fight against the illogicalities. That is their life sort of activism. But not all of them. So, but reality is reality, as I already pointed out, that majority of the Indian higher educated have eliminated the contradiction between the reason and logic, and they fail to call themselves as higher educated. You ask me, a person who successfully eliminated the contradiction between the reason and logic and became a religious person and rational person at the same time is not a higher educated person. I make this statement. I can argue with anybody. Okay, so contradiction, eliminating the contradiction is a sort of an obligation of a person to be part of a culture or a social system. So one badly wanted to be part of a social system or a cultural identity, a religious identity, social identity. So they find it essential to eliminate that contradiction. So if they eliminate that contradiction, then you continuously at least at individual level, you're not continuously at trouble, mental trouble. So I am a scientist in my lab, but I am a religious person at home. What nonsense is it? If someone asks that question, why the hell, yeah, what is the problem? Come on. So I can be a person, after all, I'm not facing any problem, or my family is not facing any problem. So what is the problem if I eliminate the contradiction? Look, boss, you're not talking about family, you're talking about society. If there is someone burning alive in person because of witchcraft, you are a scientist. First of all, you should have been the responsible person to tell the society, look, witchcraft is utter nonsense. A scientist should have been doing it for the first place, because scientist is much more higher authority in telling about the reason than a social scientist. If Srinivasa Rao goes and tells about the reason, power of the reason and logic than a scientist, they will drive me away. But if a scientist is going much more authority, they would say, look, yeah, scientist is the creator of a wonder. So therefore, we have to listen to the scientist because he understands the truth. But the scientist, when scientist compromises himself, presents himself as a follower of a deeply religious structures and systems, where is the opportunity? Where is the chance for transformation? The people who were burned alive are unconnected to the people who are very comfortably compartmentalized themselves into rational and religious people. Your responsibility doesn't stop that you are comfortable with that such compartmentalization. Then you are not part of a society. Then you are not part of a nation. Then the education you went through in a higher educational institution funded by the government is very unfair, meaningless. So therefore, you look at Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking, such a man crippled by a disease, stuck to a wheelchair towards the end of his life, has said, if science helps me to understand the existing reality, I would not need God. And this many times we believe that if you go through the amount of problems we go through, with the way you keep on nearing to the God, if the number of problems are more to you, you'll be forced to need to the God. That's what many people would say. If that is the case, what would have happened to Stephen Hawking? That man was talking through a machine, communicating through a machine to the rest of the human society. He was not able to talk. But such a man, towards the end of his life, he was saying, look, if science is helping me to understand things that I wanted to understand, I don't need God. But most of the Indian scientists, I am not saying most of the Indian scientists, most of the Indian, there are plenty of Indian scientists. Dabolkar is one of the important person. And PM Bhargava. PM Bhargava is such a wonderful person, is such a responsible scientist, that he is one of the reasons why the article 51AH went into the constitution. That is, it is the responsibility of the state to promote the scientific temper. Okay, so then he is also scientist. So he has not compartmentalized life into very comfortably into religious self and rational self. There are plenty of examples that you can see, you could have seen in this country, where Radhakrishnan takes the prototype of the PSLV, GSLV to Tirumala Tirupati and says that, and even President Sivan also, present chairman of ISRO, he also does the same thing. So he goes to the local deity Amman in Andhra Pradesh, and then he believes that it is her wishes that it took the, or it is her wishes. When it is successful, he would not say this, he is responsible for it. But when it failed, the mission is failed, nobody pins the responsibility on the God. But when the mission is successful, you can give the responsibility to the, you can give some kind of credit, some amount of credit to the God. So point is that scientists are even literary person, social scientists, all very comfortably compartmentalize life and then try to avoid the responsibility of transforming the society. So the individualization of the individualization instead of socialization. Individualization is very unfortunate in this country. That individualization is actually forced by the pragmatic identities, the social identities, caste identities, religious identities, regional identities, all of professional identities, all of them leads to a individualization of a person instead of socialization, where you'll be looking into the society instead of looking at yourself as a very successful scientist or a successful social scientist. That's not the point here. If you see yourself as a successful social scientist or successful scientist, and you achieved the highest Himalayan achievements you have achieved, what is the point? Meaningless. Nobody. I talk about PM Bhargava today. I don't want to talk about Radhakrishna. You can understand why. Okay, so PM Bhargava, and if I'm talking about say Stephen Hawking, such a exemplary scientist, that he has realized the responsibility of promoting science among the common people is very essential. He has written books on a brief history of time and all. You can a historian can read the book and understand about the physics, astrophysics. Right? So that he would not have thought that, look, common people do not understand science. Historian cannot understand science. So he simplified the mathematics language and tried to put the astrophysics into a simplest language, and he written books. So those books are very essential. So which means by writing those books, he was trying to present himself as a responsible global citizen. That the truth cannot be limited to a person who understands the truth. Truth must be told to many. So the truth in a language in which he understood, that is mathematical language, may not be understood by the rest. So therefore, the understandable language, translate the mathematical language to an understandable language, that is easy. After all, you have the ability of explaining. So that explaining ability can be transformed into an understandable language. So if you do that, any common man can understand. Common man in the sense all educated. Even uneducated can also be told by the educated person. In a lecture, for example, in a lecture, a Tamil scientist is speaking in Tamil to an uneducated people about the black holes, death of stars, formation of black holes, death of stars, Milky Way. Why? They can understand. It is our arrogance to say that they don't understand if you talk to them. After all, it is science. No, certainly not. So anyway, the scientist inability or the higher educated inability to realize their responsibilities towards the society has unfortunately reduced the opportunity of transformations of the society. What worries me is the simultaneity of social notoriety, cultural unacceptabilities, unacceptable cultures, which are painful many sections, painful to many sections of the society. I say the grand marriages, Greek fat wedding, they say, the grand marriages. The grand marriages, if marriage is a culture, the social position and economic purchasing capacity is determining what kind of marriage you are having. As an higher educated, like if you are not questioning the Greek, fat weddings, no. There are politics of fat weddings, but that politics also need to be talked about. Politics also need to be talked about. One's entertainment, one cultural gala, one cultural entertainment. If marriage is an entertainment for some sections of the society, we have enough resources. That is a pain and suffering for the rest, many. So if a higher educated is not talking about these cultural unacceptabilities or cultivating a culture that is becoming a burden, creating a culture or enlarging a culture, it is enlargement of culture. The huge fat wedding, a big wedding, is enlargement of culture, including many things which were not there earlier in the marriage. When you try to include them, it increases the cost. That increasing the cost sometimes also encourages. One has to understand many times that the culture is provided as a package. Culture is provided to you as a package. It will be having entertainment, it will be having good food, it will be having good dress, it will be having socialization, it will be having huge gatherings, it will be having a huge amount of business. So all these things is the biggest package. So, but if you don't find the problems with this package, what will happen is that imposes that enlargement of the culture, essentialization of the things that are not essential in a marriage would lead to unnecessary investment of the people who do not have the capacity of investing money. Many people think that who the hell would ask them to spend a lot of money if they do not have money. That is very easy for the people to say. But many people are obligated, many people are forced to perform certain cultural functions. That obligation, they're imposed, tradition is imposed. When the higher educated fail to question that, then that higher education is meaningless. Many people know that India society, as I told you, from 1835 to today, level of transformation is visible, but as I told you, that for my understanding, it is nominal. The continuity of the unacceptable traditions into the present is the responsible, has to be pinned on the higher educated, not to the politicians, not to the governments. It has to be pinned on the higher education, higher educated. These are higher educated, politicians also higher educated, bureaucrats are also higher educated, scientists also higher educated, social scientists are also higher educated, huge number of higher educated who are not in these areas are also higher educated. So the amount of higher educated citizens we have in this country is enormous. Yet their contribution to the social transformations or cultural changes in the society is absolutely minimal. So we are told to we are told to be successful in the life through higher education, but we are not told to look at the problems of the society. We are not told to look at the problems of the society. That is why our focus or our contribution to the social problems is much more lesser compared to our contribution to our own self. Our own self is much more higher. Let us say, okay, it is logical. You contribute to your own self first of all. Then after that, after contributing to yourself, after becoming a successful person, to what extent you are contributing to the societal transformations, that also needed to be examined, assessed. That is also not happening. So when a scientist is unfortunately, trying to limit himself or herself to her own very small geographical location, social location, then what would happen to the society? In 21st century, a woman or a male member or a male in UP, few months ago, a Dalit entered into a temple, burned alive. That's enough. One example is enough to dismiss the inability of Indian society to transform itself. Unwillingness. One single example is enough. Unwillingness of Indian society to transform itself into an acceptable, appreciable, finest human society. It is unwilling. That unwillingness is not natural. It is political. Unwillingness is not natural. Every human is a human. That is what the importance of humanism. Every human is a human. You feel sympathetic, you feel sad, you feel sorrow about another person's state of affairs. If they are suffering, if they're painful, if they're having painful life. But when the suffering, pain, and torture are normalized, because that is very essential for the social systems and cultural systems to be alive, then that is criminality of the society. If there is one incident like that, a person entered into the temple and burned alive, that's gone. The entire highest, longest democracy, biggest democracy, the finest, despite sort of cultural variations, we are diverse, we are unity in diverse. All this kind of talk becomes absolutely meaningless. When one single incident like that, if a person is burned alive, in the same state, a Muslim one was chopped with the axe and burned alive, and it was videographed in Uttar Pradesh. So then what kind of society that we're talking about? Uttar Pradesh is part of India. If Tamil Nadu is also part of India, Andhra, where Praveen was killed in open place because he married a Vaishya girl, a Dalit boy married a Vaishya girl, as he was murdered on open street. And Shankar in Tamil Nadu was killed openly in open public space. So all these examples, one has to tell you that we are a failed society. We cannot pin on just one family. It has to be pinned on the entire educational process. These are the important areas, like from the very beginning, that how the schools, how the colleges are imparting the essential culture. That essential culture is the human culture. In that essential culture is fraternity, freedom, liberty, equality are the part of essential cultures. I'm not referring to the culture that celebrate Diwali celebration or Christmas festival. I'm not talking about that culture. I'm talking about essential culture. This essential culture emerges out of the human engagement with the human reality. It comes out of human engagement with the human complexities. So human society is a complex society. So out of that human complexities, when we engage with so many different kind of cultural people with different kind of cultural backgrounds, social backgrounds, religious backgrounds, out of that engagement with so many, humanism emerges. Secularism emerges. Rationalism emerges. Fraternity emerges. Brotherhood emerges. Liberty emerges. Equality emerges. Democracy emerges. These are the essential culture. This package we forget. This package we don't promote. So when we fail to do that at the school level, that continues to be there in the higher educated level also. That's why in the beginning of my lecture, I told you, please check the level of independent thinking, how one person understands what the women rights are. An higher educated person, you take a higher educated student, both male and female, ask them to speak for 5 minutes, what is women's position in your home? They would give you the same old patriarchal, orthodox, age-old narratives of women. That is not their mistake. They were repeated with the same narratives through the functioning of the home, through the knowledge impartation and societal behavior. Society's behavior is also very important. Society's behavior justifies, open society's behavior justifies the unacceptability. It provides justification to the unacceptable traditions. The functioning of the home, the narratives, the stories, all of them combined together creates an individual. That individual, unfortunately, when you see them in the higher educated, we fail to notice, or we try to ignore them, or we don't find it a problem because it is already normalized. It is normalized. We don't ask those questions. Now I am asking you to ask those questions. We don't ask those questions. We never felt the need to ask those questions because there is no point. We are training them to get employment. We are not training them to, we are not understanding whether they transformed in themselves or acquiring the ability of transforming the society. We are not bothered about that. So we just want them to come and take a degree, and that degree is designed to promote the independent thinking. I am not denying the inbuilt capacity of higher education. But very successfully, we separate the higher education from that of a thought promotion. We impart the subject and limit the subject knowledge to the subject. We say subject knowledge is what you're supposed to have. Whether if that subject knowledge is promoting thought or not, it does not matter. We separate the social aspects, cultural aspects from education. But the education is other way around. When you have a higher educated, you should the higher education should have been having an impact on the individual's mind, eventually on the society's. Eventually that individual would be acquiring the capabilities of questioning the societal inadequacies or illogicalities. But unfortunately, we don't do that. We don't teach that, look, boss, this paper is for you to understand the social complexities or to understand the physical truth. If you are a student of, if you have a student of physics, now say Copernicus theory of universe. Copernicus theory of universe, the heliocentric theory of universe, has brought dramatic changes in the thought process, has shook the foundations of Catholic Church. How many of us know? It shook the foundations of the Catholic Church. Galileo was tortured by the Catholic Church for supporting Copernicus theory of heliocentric universe. He was put to the jail and separated away from the family members. So physics, if you are teaching physics, in a sense that you should have told that the relation between the heliocentric theory and religion. How heliocentric theory has changed the way we looked at the world. Worldview has changed. Totally worldview has changed. Heaven and earth are supposed to be eliminated from the worldview if you agree to the heliocentric theory. But how many people would focus on that? So our education, unfortunately, is not focusing on coupling these two things together. That is promoting thought, simultaneously subject knowledge. So promoting thought, automatically subject knowledge would supposed to promote thought. So that thought promotion would eventually lead to the social transformations, because this individual, this higher educated individual, would have automatically acquired the capacity of questioning the illogicalities, and that questioning the illogicalities would have automatically led to the societal transformations. But it does not take place. But the amount of social transformations initiated or driven by the higher educated is unfortunately is very less. But reasons at length I spoke about, reasons are of course political. We don't want these cultural systems, social systems, social structures not to be challenged. Not to be challenged. Because if the culture is challenged, social systems are challenged, social positions are also gets challenged. When social positions are challenged, then it is not easy for social domination. Social domination is very essential for certain castes. Therefore, if the social positions need to be kept as they are, you need to control the thought. You should stop the people challenging the social structures. They cannot be allowed to completely challenge the social. Here and there, if you wanted to make some changes, you are welcome. But if you are completely trying to challenge the culture and social structures, social positions will be disturbed. Disturbing the social positions would lead to losing the social domination. Losing the social domination is not liked by many, would not be liked by many. Therefore, they would want to stick to that. If you look at the higher educated, the list of the people who for my understanding, if you look at in the Indian history from 1835, there are so many Indians from the upper caste to the deprived communities, from the deprived communities, from the upper caste. There are plenty who could have been contributed to the transformations of Indian society. Yet, if you look at the aggressiveness, the proactiveness of the deprived community, higher educated, people from deprived community or higher educated from the deprived community, much more proactive in challenging the pre-modern socio-religious structures compared to that of the upper caste or privileged sections of the society. Their proactiveness is there. It is very visible. Raja Ram Mohan Rai is much appreciated. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar is much appreciated. But if you look at Jyotiba Phule, Ambedkar, you would have to place them on the upper pedestal in terms of challenging the pre-modern social cultural structures. They are much more aggressive, much more active, much more proactive, much more aggressive. So where this proactiveness comes? Why they are much more proactive than that of others or the people from the upper sections of the society. Why? We can understand easy, because Ambedkar or Jyotiba Phule are the people who experienced the absurdities, abnormalities, torture, pain, humiliation, indignity that is inbuilt in the pre-modern social cultural structures. So it is natural for them that they wanted to eliminate these pre-modern social cultural structures. So they would be aggressive, they will be proactive compared to that of the people from the. So from the for the people from the upper sections of the society, reforming the Indian society, higher educated, reforming the Indian society is essential, because culture of the nation cannot be criticized by the rest. It is a national prestige and pride that some cultures like sati cannot exist in a very inhuman. What will rest of the people, rest of the society would think, rest of the world would think, so therefore we should not have them. So this is part of a national pride. I am not questioning their sincerity, but however I am trying to give you the reasons why they are many are not proactive despite having the ability. All the higher educated acquires the ability of challenging the absurdities, abnormalities, socio-cultural absurdities and abnormalities. But it is trying to safeguard the social positions that keeps many mum or act less or initiate some nominal reformations in order to keep the social positions. So culture, social identities will give you social positions. If social position is lost, social domination cannot be continued. So continuation of the social domination is essential. That would eventually lead to the political domination, that also leads to the economic flourishment. Without social domination, economic flourishment would not come easily. Or even to the access to higher education. Access to higher education is determined one's own social position, by one's own social position. Ajinta Subramaniam, anthropologist from USA, Indian, has worked on IIT Madras and concluded that upper casteness is used as a tool to build the argument merit. And they say upper casteness is equal to the entry to IIT. So just you become upper caste is enough to be eligible to get into IIT. So she has worked on IIT and proved that. So like that, social position is also one of the reasons of providing easy access to higher education. So I'll stop here because there has to be break. Then I'll come back after 15 minutes, I believe. Okay, sir, Madan sir.
Sure,
Yeah.
Rob, sir. We'll take a 15 minutes break, then you'll join later.
Okay.
Thank you. Dear friends, participants, I would like to make you one thing very clear. You please turn on your video, because our technical team found and nearly 12 people 12 people's video is keep on turned off, so it I think it won't be nice, it seems to be uh, uh, especially Dr. Antonu Nandi sir, your video cam seems to be quite off for nearly more than 10 minutes or so, they were reporting
Well,
me.
it's due
So
to
please make,
sometimes it is due to internal problem, nothing else. I'm here
okay
from
sir,
team.
just make sure that, and I don't want to read the entire people name, nearly 10 people. Also, the Gandhimati ma'am, you please make sure that your video is turned on.
The current, not the current.
Okay, ma'am, please, because these are the very particular. They are very particular about this video, whether your video is turned on or not. Please make sure that. So this is the one thing I just want to make you clear. Thank you so much, and we'll join after 15 minutes. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Welcome back, friends. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
sir. Proceed.
Dear friends, once again, I'm insisting you to please check your network connection and please make sure that your videos are on. That is very important for this UGC HRDC. Please, I'm sorry to say this. I would like to quote one more incident. Last program, one of the participants, he was switched off or he turned off the video, and I don't know what could be the reason, but the system automatically removed from this participant list, and again he approached the director, and he was and very struggled a lot to get into the group again. So please, I don't want you to be in such a situation, please, and make sure that your video is turned on all the time, the entire session. Thank you so much for your kind cooperation. Rauji.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can we start now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you, sir, please.
Yeah. So, caste is being used as a capital, uh, uh, social capital, cultural capital. So that determines the access to higher education. Not only access to monopolization, some sort of a monopolization also. That monopolization is what Ajanta Subramaniam has clearly brought out. And that monopoly is naturalized by equating the merit with the caste. Another social scientist, sociologist, worked on IISc Bangalore, called Rennie Thomas. So he worked on IISc Bangalore. The upper caste over there has naturalized. Science is very natural to the upper caste. They're very easy with science. So this argument also brought the justification or naturalization of merit is equal to upper caste. Science is easy for upper caste. For the rest, it is not easy. So such kind of arguments are made and they are proved by studying Ajanta Subramaniam worked on IIT Madras in her caste of merit. That is the book name. Engineering education in India, IIT Madras, the caste of merit. So in this book, Ajanta Subramaniam tried to make an argument that how upper caste try to use their upper caste position to naturalize. Merit is natural to them, and also try to use the caste status as historical advantages. Caste as a historical advantage to monopolize the higher education. So these two arguments she made in her book. So this is eventually leads to the along with the commercialization of education, corporatization of education, the monopolization of education eventually works against the very idea of social justice. See, the higher education for the lower sections of the society is only source. You can, Tamilians would have seen the Asuran movie. Some of the Tamilians would have seen, who are present here, would have seen Asuran movie. In that, the protagonist, the hero of the Asuran movie, tells to his son at the end of the movie, towards the end of the movie, look, son, from a lower deprived section person, if there is land would be taken away. If there is money would be taken away. If there is education, only education cannot be taken away. So therefore, you do well in education instead of trying to take revenge on those people who have caused pain and suffering to your family. So therefore, he wanted to end the violence by educating his son by saying that you focus on education. That is the only source for you. So such is the situation for the deprived sections of the society. But through commercialization, through corporatization, through monopoly of the upper caste, if the higher education is monopolized, the access is blocked, then the social justice cannot be served. So the social justice, as I told you, if there are women, there are OBCs, there are BCs and Sudras combinedly called, there are Dalits, there are Adivasis in there, their percentage is quite minimal. According to Ajanta Subramaniam, in 1927, there is 74% as of upper caste in higher education, despite being just 3%. She also talked about colonial times higher education, engineering education. So, and that percent would not have dramatically changed. It could have been increased by this time. So that is the situation. So if the access to the higher education is blocked by monopolization, by naturalization of higher education, or the naturalization of intelligence to that of equal to that of the upper caste. If the intelligence is equal to upper caste, then and that also equals to merit, then automatically people will fall for that narrative. Then automatically block is quite natural. Then say if that argument is accepted that the intelligence is equal, upper caste people are are the natural inheritance, naturally inheritors of intelligence. Then what would happen? A society that celebrates the merit. Society that celebrates the merit would automatically falls for that. Those people who are meritorious, you have to appreciate, you have to encourage. Final, period. So there are no social considerations, there are no other considerations. What the hell? All that we want is merit. People with good abilities, capabilities. That's what we believe. The open society believes so. But a merit is connected to caste, eventually opens the doors for some, closes the doors for many. So that is not politics of that narrative, that equalizing the upper caste to intelligence, or upper casteness is equal to intelligence, is not questioned or not suspected. If that happens, then what would happen? Certainly, the open society would fall for the narrative that all those people from the upper caste, their presence in the higher educational institutions is quite natural. One cannot be critical of them because of their intelligence. They are their higher presence, despite being less percentage. If their high presence, if their their presence is high in the higher educational institutions, the scientific institutions, it is quite natural. Why the hell are you criticizing that? But that is not the that is only an imposed or cultivated narrative, that is a made up narrative. And this that is what Ajanta Subramaniam worked on it, and Rani Thomas worked on it, and they try to disprove these arguments, saying that there is no connection between them. They uses their these historical advantages, what I say, upper caste position as an historical advantage in order to build these narratives, and these narratives eventually help them. See what the economic resources, the comfortability of comfortability you have, the economic resources you have, the kind of time you have, the kind of mental tension you do not have, that is actually quite natural to the people with lesser economic resources, people with less economic backing, people with lower social positions. They will have all these tensions. Their mind is not free. If the mind is free, you can excel in many things. That is very simple logic. If you look at the amount of financial resources available with the upper caste, you would have to come to a conclusion that, look, it is your comfortability, social comfortability, that you need not have to feel humiliated because you are from lower sections of the society. You need not have to worry that you are not going to have lunch tomorrow. You need not have to worry that you are not able to pay fees for tomorrow, semester fees or exam fees. So when these worries are not there in a mind, to a person, it is quite natural that those people would succeed in, they'll have enough time to deal with the subject, and they automatically exceed. But these important aspects are ignored in promoting the narratives called like we are natural. Science is natural for us. So therefore, you cannot criticize my existence in higher educational institutions, my dominance in higher educational institutions. So therefore, that is very unfair argument to make, that I am monopolizing the educational institutions. So my presence is to do with my intellectual ability, but that intellectual ability is socially constructed. Is a cultural construction that is imposed on the open society through their ability of constructing the narratives, promoting the narratives, propagating the narratives, and they are very successfully climbs to that position. And they say we are naturally intelligent. Science is very natural for an upper caste person. So therefore, what is the point of your criticism? So this is the argument, and the social position is determining the access to higher education. Whether we are in sort of a neoliberal capitalist economy, capitalism is dictating the governments. That is the truth. Nobody can deny that. So in that situation, like today we have agreed to the idea that like education has to be bought or to be purchased. So it's quite unfair to ask for free education when you are benefiting after getting a degree. After benefit, you are a beneficiary of a degree. You are not paying to the government after getting benefited from the degree that you have acquired through a governmental institution or a non-governmental institution, whatever. So how fair it is not to pay for what you are getting? Okay, if you are benefiting, you get. That is simple economic logic. That's what the capitalist argument in privatizing, in commercializing higher education. But in that, is that logic fair? When you ask this question, is that logic fair? Naturalization of the purchasing power. How purchasing power is natural to some sections of the society, how that purchasing power is moral, how that purchasing power is moral, ethical. First of all, you have to raise that question. How the purchasing power some sections seems to have are justified, are celebrated, are glorified. So you have IIMs and other educational institutions where lakhs are paid for the fees as fees. How do you justify such a kind of purchasing power? Where this purchasing power is coming? What amount of that purchasing power is moral? What amount of that purchasing power is ethical? Yesterday I spoke about this. I have seen a clipping that is shared in social media. In Bangalore, a few parents are involved in auction, a medical seat auction. Like donations are gone, semester fees are gone. So now it has gone to the auction. So some parents are involved in auction. So auction started with 50 lakhs for a PG course in radiology in a Chennai college. It has gone to 4 crores. Now, if a medical seat is bought for 4 crores, then you have to raise questions on where that purchasing power is coming from. Is it not? How ethical and how moral that purchasing power is. So based on the purchasing power or the capacity of India, India has to be segregated into 2. One is the upper, rich and upper class, and the lower middle, upper middle class. and the lower middle class and the poor. These are the broad two categories you can have based on the purchasing power of higher education. While the first category, that the rich and the upper middle class, they invest and they justify their action of investing on higher education without seeing the morality and ethicality of that purchasing. They might have been generating the resources, except the rich. The upper middle class also depends on generating the resources. If the upper middle class, for example, the instance or the incidents I talked about, that is the auction. A family that is offering 4 course to the medical PG course in radiology could have had enough resources. Class, what they do is that they justify that investment on the medical seat by disconnecting themselves from the rest of the society. So capitalism would not find fault with it. General society is also brought to the narrative, or brought to the fall into the narrative that those people who have enough resources will buy a purchase. What is the problem in that? What is the morality and ethical problems involved in that? If someone asks that question, then one has to ask, is a person who is from the deprived communities, would they have bought that seat? Where will they get the financial resources? Why such an action, an incident called action, is not criminalized by the open society? Open society should have criminalized that action, action by the parents and the institute involved in auctioning the medical seat. Very commercialization of education, corporatization of education, it itself is criminal. But we have gone to the auction. We have not seen any problem in that. That's what is the sort of education we have, or the kind of access we are having, the kind of understanding we have reached, that we don't see the commercialization, corporatization of education as a problem at all. Now, if there is a girl called Aishwarya Reddy, killed herself because she could not get the fellowship that is offered because she topped in a college study in her own state. And that is one extreme. A monthly scholarship could not come, she could not get a laptop, and she could not join with the online class. She commits suicide. This is one extreme. And there are parents who are offering full course for a PG course in medicine. That is an extreme, another extreme. Both these are problematic. Both these are problematic, but we are very comfortable. Look, there are some people who do not have economic resources. That is natural. There are some people who have economic resources. That is also natural. So how can we criminalize the first category and we'll sympathetic to the second category?
Sir, we can't hear the audio, sir. Okay, sir.
No audio.
Yeah, coming. So education is a public good. So that public good, with no sort of a guilty feeling, we are celebrating it. Commercialization, level of commercialization, level of corporatization is, open society is celebrating it. There's a feeling sympathetic to the government, which is making arguments. Look, I am incapable of doing it. If someone coming and serving you, what is the problem? So don't keep crying on the government that it is not doing enough. So not only we come to understanding that that it is okay for a school to be opened in a corner, where even a village, some families in the village are sending to a school opened by a private firm. and that itself justifies the purchasing capacity. They are not complaining over there. Only some people, activists, are complaining. So therefore, governments also takes that as an evidence. Like in some corner in the village, some corner in India, some remote village in India, there is a private school where the children are being sent by the parents by paying money, while there is a school, government school simultaneously exists, which is free. So automatically it justifies the government argument or the corporation argument. So this justification comes from, look, wherever quality is there, people go there. What is your problem? But to what extent that quality? You look at the hypocrisy of the Indian society. You want the government employment, higher educational institutions, government institutions are better. When it comes to the employment, government employment is socially secured employment. But when it comes to the higher education, you want private. So I don't understand this hypocrisy and logic. Anyway, so therefore, when it's come with these two broad categories, the second category, unfortunately or naturally, depends upon the state and other agencies which offer them financial support, because on their own they cannot go and access higher education, have easy access to higher education. So therefore what they do, they obligate the state, they force the state to support them financially. So there will be fellowships, there will be scholarships, there will be post-matric fellowships from PhD down to PG. But this general open society, which also, despite having the capacity of purchasing, would not leave the deprived society just like that. It criminalizes or try to intimidate the lower caste or the deprived society, saying that, look, you are a parasite living on the public funds. So fellowships, scholarships, post-matric fellowships offered by the government, offered by some other agencies, are sort of seen as unfair sort of help. It's an unfair, they're unfairly getting benefits from the government in the name of their social position. First of all, it is we all know that their social position, their lack of economic resources is not their crime, are not natural to them. We all know how the rich emerges in this country. What are the economic procedures through which rich emerges in this country or anywhere in this world? Despite feeling guilty of becoming rich, the rich would take the narrative, would develop a narrative of criminalizing the government assistance or intimidating the people who get help or humiliating people who get help, saying that, look, you are unfairly getting benefits in the name of your social position. So that humiliation, apart from not having easy life, not having a free mind to excel in higher education, that is one side. Then even if some help is coming from somewhere, even if it is a government, that itself is criticized and an extra added humiliation to the individual who is existing in the higher educational institutions from the deprived sections of the society. So that is what the result of Aishwarya Reddy, that is what the result of Rohit Vemla. So humiliation is added, extra added. Despite there is already humiliation, enough humiliation that is already inbuilt in the social position. But that is not enough. In the name of so, there is this humiliating narratives that are built around because the upper caste, because they believe that each and every paisa they give, it is of their own. If it is their own, but the money that is being used for the survival, money that is being used to pay the fees for the degrees, by the lower sections of the society is offered by the government. So it is not their money. So the upper caste believe, the privileged sections of the society believe that it is their money which is actually paid to the education of the deprived sections of the society by the government. So you are misusing the public funds. So this double humiliation, apart from the social position, there is an inbuilt humiliation, and in the higher education institutions, the humiliating narratives, gossipings, as well as whispering, as well as open attacks on the deprived sections of the society. Those who exist in the higher educational institutions would lead them to take drastic decisions and their lives. There are plenty. So recently is Aishwarya from Lady Sri Ram College in Delhi. So corporatization and commercialization of higher education eventually undoubtedly works against the very idea of social justice. If the cost of higher education is increased, the cost of funds also, the amount of funds that are offered to the lower sections of the society by the government is also to be increased. Okay, but that proportionately would not take place. There was in the UPA government, there is a Rajiv Gandhi Fellowship, there was fellowship BCs, there was fellowship for the minorities. All of them are blocked and they are renamed. And then I don't know how much amount they are being given now, or whether they are being given or not, I do not know. But certainly there is a certain process initiated to further block the access of higher education to the lower sections of the society. So why these lower sections of the society access is being blocked to them? Because as I've already mentioned Ambedkar's case, that a person who went through the experience of humiliation, torture, pain because of the social position would naturally be aggressive and will be critical of the authoritative undemocratic systems, and they would focus much more on trying to understand and build the narratives of their history, culture, and on the daily basis they would be critical of the undemocratic and discriminative cultures that exist in the higher education institutions. So automatically they would be problematic to the higher education institutions. So they need to be controlled. Instead of allowing them to come in after that controlling, why the hell you control them at the gate itself by reducing the funds? Okay, so that's very easy. So corporatization is a finest block that it does not care. Your social position is not a matter. You have to pay for what I offer. That is what is a private university or a private college. If there is a government institution, government is obligated to pay, obligated to help as part of the emancipation programs. It has to offer some assistance. So as long as the government institutions are existing, it becomes obligation. So it has to offer certain space for the people from the lower sections of the society. So it continues to continue to help them. So if it doesn't, it will be criticized by the general public. So therefore, it cares less. It wanted to reduce its contribution or its peer, its role in higher education. Government dramatically wanted to reduce. So I am not there. Why are you asking my help? Very simple. Now, if higher education is available in a private university, so if you are joining there, it is your responsibility to pay. Wherever I am, I will give you help. So the reduction of the government, dramatic reduction of the government, very fast-paced reduction of the government, withdrawal of the government from the higher education is to signal that in the future, that the deprived sections of the society has to pay much higher, or you have to stop talking about higher education, stop thinking about higher education, because you do not have economic resources to pay for the higher education that is offered by the private. Okay, so though the Andhra Pradesh government has worked out some sort of a solution where even if you are in a private engineering college, I'll give you some money, some help, so reimbursement and all that stuff is. But however, the delay that takes place, right, in the Soundarya's, Aishwarya's case, that in the government, there are serious problems in that. So all these communities, deprived communities, they come from the working communities, families, the working, agricultural workers, industrial workers. Say for a simple degree, a non-commercial degree, let me quote in quote, a non-economically viable degree. That's like say MBA, engineering, computer engineering, even in history or a sociology or a Tamil. If you have a student studying in university and a residential system where he or she is supposed to there in the hostel, it would cost for 1 year. It would cost at least 1,50,000 for a student. A 2 years degree, they have to pay 3 lakhs. In agricultural labor family, how will they get that money? 3 lakhs. Still, it is a government university. Still, is a government. I'm talking about not a private college, a Tamil MA or a history MA, a sociology MA. I'm not talking about a private university or a college. I'm talking about a government university where minimum 3 lakhs are essential. 3 lakhs are needed for first 1 year to finish 1 year MA. So where 3 lakhs would come from? So automatically it will be blocked for them. They would not come into higher education. That's enough. If you are a upper caste, say if you are a deprived caste person, anger is very natural for you because you feel deprived. That you have never developed. You continue to be agricultural family. Your father is agricultural family, so you be an agricultural family person. What is the hell about it? You need not have to change. So this is indirect argument of the government by reducing or by increasing the private space by reducing the public space in higher education. So this is where you have to see the increasing this is to look at some of the aspects of the economic aspects of the higher education. So in terms of social justice, continuous fast-paced corporatization, commercialization of higher education is also would eventually lead to the blocking of the deprived sections of the society. So their blocking is very essential because that's how they are, if they understand what is happening to them, if they understand what happened to them over generations together, they'll be angry. So a student, a history student, he became a historian. A person from deprived community, a Dalit, an Adivasi, a woman, became a historian, very excellent historian or excellent sociologist, excellent anthropologist. They seriously conduct research into that, and then they would come to an understanding that this is how we were deprived, this is how we are discriminated. So such a production of literature, such a production of knowledge will be dangerous to the society that wanted to maintain the status. For the state also it is problematic. For the corporations also it is problematic. For example, Adivasis understand how they are being discriminated by the state and corporations. If they produce knowledge on how they are being exploited by the corporations and the state, then they will be angry. That anger cannot be controlled by the. So that anger will result in the mass resistance. That mass resistance need to be controlled. Then if that mass resistance need to be controlled, state has to be aggressive. If the state is aggressive, state will be criticized. If the state is criticized, then it has to agree to what the Adivasis are saying. They have to accept the truth of how they are exploited. So therefore, the emergence of the intellectuals from the deprived sections of the society need to be controlled. So if you have to control it, you have to block them. So blocking them is first thing is to reduce the public space of higher education, increase the private space of higher education, reduce the number of scholarships, deprive the access. Now we also know That number of PhDs are decreased, number of PhD seats are decreased in universities. So unfortunately, that is the biggest damage to the sections of the society, deprived sections of the society, who are in large number coming into PhDs now. If you look at the higher education from 1950s to 1990s, monopoly over the higher education is primarily upper caste. Now the space is opened. When the space is opened, then there is a huge amount of alternative narratives are being made. A huge amount of history, huge amount of critique of the social systems and social customs are being made, and the histories of Dalits, Adivasis, women, all these deprived communities being written, and the sociological analysis, economic analysis are being carried out. So automatically it creates discomfort among those people who have been very comfortable celebrating the history of India for a long time. So they have written uncomfortable history. They have been written for a long time. So it is the time to face the uncomfortable history. So this uncomfortable history is unfortunately causing discomfort to the upper sections of the society. So ultimately what you have to do is that once the history is written, you cannot dismiss it. Then that becomes the question of controlling the freedom of speech or knowledge, so undemocratically controlling the knowledge. So you stop the very production of knowledge by reducing the number of intellectuals coming from the deprived sections of the society. That is very strategical, powerful strategy, instead of allowing them and controlling them later. So that will lead to much more dramatic tensions and frictions between the state and the communities which are coming from the deprived sections of the society. So therefore, state is very cleverly trying to reduce its space or its responsibility, and it is very cleverly using the neoliberal logic or capitalist logic, trying to increase the private space. So it cannot be blamed later. So it is very natural that what is happening in it is what is happening in the world. How can I be blamed for what is happening in India alone? If you are surrendered to the capitalist neoliberal economy, so be it. You cannot be critical of me alone. Yes, throughout the world this is happening. So this is what is very as far as social justice is concerned, is what is happening. So Anita has committed suicide in Tamil Nadu, despite doing well in +2, 98% she has got, but then she committed suicide. So how can we understand that? So her space is eliminated. She came to an understanding that, like, my existence is meaningless, because I was told by the government that, look, you do not have the space here. So therefore, your existence, you have to decide whether you wanted to continue to exist or you wanted to disappear. That you take a decision. So many would say that Anita would take an unfortunate decision, should not have taken that decision. But yes, Anita, a bright student from Dalit community, could have become a medical expert, and her life saying that she could not get what she wanted. So many ways, from many angles, we can try to understand why she did it, what is the reason. Many people, from the point of they see is weak and weak-minded. That is not the only option available. There are plenty of options available. So these kind of arguments can be made. Very natural, we make those arguments. But then one has to see from her point of view. So came to a correct conclusion that she did well. She deserved to be a medical professional, but however, the space is not available, opportunity is not available. So she ended her life. So therefore, such naturalization of inability, quote unquote. I'm not using that word. I am not adding that word to Anita. Naturalization of inability, quote unquote. This that naturalization is a political strategy. That if you did not get it, you do not have the ability. That is what it is. If the upper caste people are dominating in IAS and IITs, they have the ability, so that is it. So there is no point in talking about. So this is sort of a public discourse, the narratives that they very effectively built. So as far as politics also, we should talk a bit about politics of higher education. There are two aspects of it, two ways of understanding it. People doing politics from being belongs to higher education or doing politics. Like you are a person in higher education doing politics, but doing politics on higher education, these two are different things. Okay.
Excuse me, Rao sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Maybe you can interact participants whether they have.
Yeah. So it is say 4:26 on my laptop timer. I will give half an hour. I'll give half an hour. So I'll just
they may
stop
have
at
different opinions, ideas. I hope so.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll stop at 4:30. 4:30.
Sure,
I'll just talk 4 more minutes.
Yeah,
4 more minutes. So when it comes to politics in higher education, criminalization of people doing politics belongs to higher educational institutions is also an unfortunate culture that we have. And a person belongs to higher education is not allowed to do politics. It is not doing politics, it is understanding politics, analyzing politics, criticizing politics, and trying to put the government or the society in a correct path. They are the best persons to involve in that function. If you say being an higher educator, mind your business, you're a professor in university, how can you talk about politics? So this kind of sort of culture, this kind of narratives is to eliminate the powerful analysis that would trouble the governments or trouble the powerful forces, corporations, which are actually doing so. If these people are trying to understand, because they have a fantastic understanding mind, see, if their minds are not put to work, who else can do it? So therefore, to avoid that critique, uncomfortable critique, they would criminalize the people coming from higher education and who involves in talking politics. Who are seriously studying politics. So therefore, you cannot criminalize the people in higher education doing politics, talking politics, understanding politics, analyzing politics. So that is very important. So even if you are a scientist, even if you are a social scientist,
Sir, voice is not coming.
Understand. Even if you are a scientist, understanding politics is very important. You know, the last 2 centuries, that is 1750 to 1950, before the environmental controlled development came into existence through legislations. You know, environmental protection, all these things came into existence from 1980s in India. So according to C.P. Snow, C.P. Snow is a philosopher of science, British scientist. He has delivered a lecture called Two Cultures, which is scientists one side, literary people on the other side. Later 3 cultures also came in, social scientists are all. So he argued that last 2 centuries are disastrous because the social science, the engineers and scientists on one side, and literary people who understand the sociological processes, economic explanation, human emotions, are not connected with each other. They isolatedly existed in different locations. So they separated them. Had they come together, they could have controlled the sort of erratic scientific and technological development that brought the society or the entire world to a crisis. So this crisis of civilization that we talk about today is combination of global warming, depleted resources, pollution. All these three problems resulted out of these two cultures, academic cultures, literature on one side, the science and engineering on the other side, separately existed for 2 centuries, and that resulted in a serious problem. So therefore, if that is the case, then scientists stopped being a politician, in a sense that scientists did not try to understand what are the politics of his science that he is making. Albert Einstein wrote a small essay called Why Socialism? A person like why would be worrying about what kind of governing system is adopted by the governments. So he favored socialism over capitalism. And he warned the American president, make sure that the atomic science would not fall into the hands of Hitler. A person like will be disaster. Later, America, of course, is the first one to use the science and bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That is a different question altogether. But Einstein as a scientist is, sort of, performing his function, trying to understand the politics of his science, how it will be disastrous if the science fall into the hands of a person like Hitler. And he also made a responsibility clear that I have every right to talk about what kind of governing system should be there in the world. So he take his right by writing this essay that I support socialism over capitalism. This is Albert Einstein. So like that, politics are not something that are to be separated from the educated person. The last segment, I'll just take just 5 minutes, then we can go for discussion, is the culture of higher education. Here also there are two. One is, what is the higher education's contribution to understand the culture of society? It is the higher education which has an enormous capacity to understand the cultural complexities of any society. But at the same time, culture, higher education culture, this is different. Higher education culture, like in an institutional setup, an institutional structure, what we do, how we behave, how we involve in generating knowledge, how we interact with each other. Every university, every college is a multicultural society. It itself is a small, big, complex unit, a social unit. So, for my understanding, if the higher education has to flourish, the people in the organizational culture, it's called organization and institutional culture, if you wanted to call the institutional culture, people are supposed to be finest democratic, especially heads of the institutions are the finest democratic people. So their character, their culture, individual culture, what they are, who they are, how they act, how they take decisions, how they treat everybody equally, would result in the general health of the university or a college that eventually contributes to the nation. So for my understanding, higher education and institutional culture is a perfect culture of a finest human society that can stand as an example to the rest of the society, that is a society that is existing outside the four walls of an higher educational institution, which is also as multicultural as the university, as a college is. So as a higher educated minds, finest thinking, independent thinking minds, it can display a culture. It can display a culture, a behavior, a give and take behavior, argumentative culture. That culture would have been a symbolic, would have an exemplary culture to the rest of the society that would follow. Now, if you look at the university is a combination of brightest minds, I would say. So those minds, and despite having a complex society outside existing out of all these, social individual cultures, there is institutional culture, there is an individual culture. Individual culture comes in conflict with the institutional culture. So when the institutional culture is allowed to go. Individual try to reduce himself, reduce the importance of his culture. He has to allow the institutional culture to go. Institutional culture means what? A combined, composite culture would exist out of the common interest or the common respect to each and every individual. So that culture that is displayed in annual cultures and annual cultural events would be very useful, or that will be exemplary to the rest of the society. So apart from that, one thing is very important, that there is a marked difference between the metropolitan and semi-urban universities and colleges in terms of democracy, in terms of free flow of ideas, in terms of discussions and debates, that your thought in the very universities that we're talking about, even 21st century, your thought, even if a professor, does not matter. Your mind is closed, your mind is controlled. So if I like Bengalis and as well as Malayalis, because over the cup of coffee they talk so many things. That gossiping culture is not they're talking about which girl you like, which girl you love, who is your boyfriend. That is not their talk. They talk about so many things, so interesting things. They debate about the national future at a tea shop. That is the culture of the Bengalis as well as Malayalis. So the gossiping culture is actually very essential. That is the discussion, debating culture. So some of it I would not say, and 100% of it is not only talking about politics, but also personal things need to be talked about. You cannot completely ban them when you group together, but that is very essential. So how free are the students to discuss and debates about the international, national issues that concerning the nation, concerning the community. So this is how higher educational culture must grow. So I think I spoke what I have. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Srinivasa Rao.
Thank you.
And you touched on so many areas and what's happening in the present scenario. I'm expecting some healthy discussion from the audience. So our professor is ready to answer for your questions. Please.
Someone needs to do the ice breaking, I think.
I think Nitya ma'am has a lot of questions, seems to be.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, even though we have a qualification and competitive to get the position in IITs, IISs, but those are making some rules. Then they don't select even us. What's the reason?
We means whom are you referring to? We means there is sort of, you have to, if you're using the word we,
So many of
you
us
have
having the qualifications, sir.
Yeah,
Even the
that
competitive
is
qualifications, but
yeah, that's what I told you. See, the capacity of scoring high to get the access to higher educational institutions like IITs are not being determined by the individual capacity. Say one individual capacity is not enough. You have to go through the coaching. For that, you have to have money. You have to have financial backing. For that, your parents should tell you that, so that you are out of mental tension, that whether you're going to do or not. It is not just entering into the IIT, whether you're going to survive or not. That is also a question. It's not that your educational capacities are not determining how you do well. Okay, so therefore, and also before that, when you go for the exam, before going for the exam, you are given the impression that you are just passing from the college is not enough. You have a coaching. For coaching, you need to have money. Ajinta Subramaniam also talks about it, like how the people are given the impression that just passing the degree is not enough. You have to have serious coaching. So that is amounts to lakhs of money. So there is also people get scared, like without coaching, how can I write the exam? It's all absolutely meaningless an exercise. So you have to see that different ways that this scare the people. saying that, look, you are not capable, you are not, without coaching you cannot go. So therefore, these things one need to talk about. There will be one or two examples where without, people going to the coaching, without coaching, an auto rickshaw person or an agricultural laborer, son, daughter have scored high in the IIT entrance test. These are one, two cases will be very, taken for granted, and they'll be glorified. Look, all these people are making unfair arguments, blaming the government or blaming the corporations or say coaching centers, saying that look, rickshaw puller's son without any coaching has got passed into IIT. So yes, there will be one or two cases that cannot be generalized. No, that cannot be generalized. So how many upper caste people are just entering into? How are they entering? What is the role of coaching centers? If the coaching centers are determining the entry into the IIT, then that coaching money to that coaching center to achieve that social justice, money to that coaching center is also should be given to the socially deprived sections by the government. Government does not do it. No, I am giving you money to enter into the institution to pay for fees. How can you expect me to give me money to coaching centers? So is it not? It is logical. So therefore, it is not just your your education that is determining. There are so many other things. That's what you must read Ajanta Subramaniam's book, The Caste as Merit. She will give you a lot of inputs.
Rao sir,
Yeah.
can I have one more question?
Yeah,
So
sure.
earlier when we had in the professional courses for entrance examination, Anna University used to conduct entrance examination. That time also there were so many coaching centers. They used to collect money, and students they used to join to get high score in that examination. And did you find any difference between this coaching center, NEET coaching center, and this earlier the professional entrance exam coaching centers?
No, entrance exam is like, say, entrance exam coaching centers or not that in a sense like training a student to enter into a space where that is not, allowed, or, a sort of very, very highly powerful educational space called IITs, IIMs, okay, IASC Bangalore. Say there is a difference between the state tech engineering college and the IIT. So you don't need a coaching to enter into the state engineering college, but that is not the same case with the IIT. The branding of these institutions is very important. Who cares about the state engineering college? But IIT is like, the brand that is built, the social value that is built, the cultural value that is built around it, the economic value that is built around it, IITs, is makes it much more valuable compared to that of the state engineering college. So Anna University, entrance to Anna University or many other state universities or the state engineering colleges, you would not need coaching. But if you're a serious student in the +2 or whatever, you would get access to it.
No,
But
sir, no, I didn't mean the Anna University engineering entrance examination. They used to conduct an entrance examination for all professional courses like medicine, veterinary, agri. So they used to conduct entrance examination. But for that entrance, to appear that entrance examination, all the students who completed their higher secondary, they used to go for training programs. Even when I was doing my higher secondary, I used to go for such training programs. That's why I remember the NEET also. One way you can consider this as entrance examination. So how it differ? Like entrance means entrance, whether it's a national level or state level doesn't matter. But how we can consider these two things? That's what.
no, see, NEET entrance and the state entrance are not the same. See, first of all, standardization of medical education, which need not have to be across the states. State, in fact, first of all, though there will be a common policy for the nation, education is a state subject. State subject. Government is trying to take over that. Central government is trying to take over it in the name of the standardization of medical education through a NEET exam. Would has to consider so many cultural aspects. Now, Anita's case, if you take, Anita would have, with her percentage, Anita would have got into medical education if there was no need. That does not mean that she would be doing badly after entering into the any medical college. So point is that entrance examination itself, that trying to blow out of proportions, that trying to it's entry itself is the greatest thing, that creating that image itself is actually creating scare among the people. So it's a big thing to achieve. So therefore, we should not try. We should not make it. So there are entrance exams even supported by the governments also. There are coaching centers opened by the government. They are offering the help to the deprived sections of the society, but they are not, quote unquote, as effective as the private coaching centers. So for my understanding, the entrance exams should be there, but it has to has to address the regional interest, state interest, in the process of standardization. Standardization cannot be imposed. Standardization has to be looked at regional variations also.
Thank you, sir.
So entrance, yeah.
Santosh sir, I think he has some questions.
Hello.
Yeah.
So this is Sudhanshu.
Sudhanshu, okay, please.
Yes. So, sir, I have a small question actually. So, do we need exactly this reservation in higher education institutes? Because I feel that in my institute also, some of the students who are admitted through reservation, they are not able to pass out their BSc program even. So, what is your views on this? So, also, in government, as per government policy, we are unable to fill up the position seats of undergraduate seats. Those are reserved for reserved category. So, what is your views or thoughts?
No, no,
Sir, my question is also related to this only. But in other sense, I want to ask, when we talk about reservation and we talk about population according to the category, so there is a hardly 16% SC category, around 9% somewhere ST, OBC around 47%. So the general category, if we talk about, it's only around 30% or something, and the maximum cap on reservation is also 50%. So general category gets to fight for the 50%, and they're already most of the people in that category are well off and they have all the opportunities. They are not historically oppressed. So why are we always talking about those 15% and 9% seats? Why are we always targeting that instead of the 50% that you're getting? You're not preparing for that. And those who score well and they get the seats, they are in the double whammy. If they get a general seat, they are asked, why did you take other person's seat? And if they get the reserved seat, they are like, oh, you got the reserved seat, you're not qualified enough, you got through reservation. So it's always contradictory. So what are your views on it?
No, no. So my there's nothing contradictory about it. See, 50% or 30% is among the 30% is everybody is qualified. Or that I don't understand the sociological logic of that. Among the 30% of the upper caste or caste Hindus, everybody qualifies. How do you understand that? Where they get that quality? Educational quality. Again, you have to agree with the argument that the caste is equal to intelligence. Is that true? Should we agree to that argument that a person from the upper caste is naturally qualified to get into and they'll have the natural inheritance of the knowledge? So therefore, and they're at the disadvantage because they are not getting enough seats because of the reservation. Block is there, cap is there. So how do you understand that, equating the caste identity into intelligence? This is a serious problem. So that's what I say, that is doing well is to do with the caste identity. That you from a lower section of the society, lower caste of the society. That's why you're not able to do well. Now the doing well, if you connect it to are not doing well and not doing well, if you are connected to the environmental conditions, economic circumstances, social emotions, social emotions and social humiliation. All these things would have an impact on people why they are not doing well. It is not that, say, once a person enter into IIT, a person from the deprived sections of society, and we observe that person like, look, there is an example that this person came into IIT and IISc Bangalore, but he is not able to do it well, and the rest of the person who came from the upper sections of the society doing well. So therefore, how effective is the reservation after giving the opportunity? This person should have done well. But when you try to conduct a sociological analysis, that is not happening. So then why you understand? You have to conduct further analysis. So why? First of all, failing probably, yes. Why are they failing? That you have to conduct a sociological study, first of all. It is nothing to do with an individual failing. It is to do with the circumstances not supporting. Understand what I'm saying? So there you have to look at that. First of all, why people are failing. The data is already there. The 97%, 60% of the deprived sections of the society gets dropped out. There is a case in Mumbai IIT where a Dalit boy is trying to sell his kidney, but that kidney was not bought by anybody because he's a Dalit. So, so these are the conditions, these are the circumstances under which this is the pressure that cannot be bared. This pressure people don't take into consideration when they talk about doing well or not doing well. Okay, that is number. Second, that the question that you have raised about why these people who are doing well to be at the disadvantage. Okay, it's like, like if everybody is a competitive, the 30%, among the 30%, if everybody is doing well, that mystery need to be understood. So the same social conditions need to be provided to the rest of the people also. Okay, same social conditions, same economic conditions. If rest of the people are provided, then you see that why these 16% or 8% of the people are not doing well. Then probably you might come to a conclusion, acceptable conclusion, that probably there is caste behind intelligence. We can come to that conclusion, but before that doing done, I cannot do it. I cannot agree to the argument that yes, you see, if you are already achieved a position of doing well, then you need not have to have a sort of a worry, because the opportunity for you is multiple. It is not in one place. But the point is that how that section, 30% of section, has reached a situation where everybody is doing well. Everybody, how can everybody do well? There are, every individual is not the same, is it not? So therefore, that sociological mystery need to be understood. Then only you might be able to have answer to that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Getting into IIT is it really necessary to go for an coaching center?
Hello, sir.
So, getting admitting into an IIT or National Level Institute, is it really necessary one student to go for coaching? Why?
That is what a serious study conducted by Ajanta Subramanian proved. Andhra, if you take, Andhra are the mad after engineering from 1970s to 2000 till today. So Andhra coaching factories are much more higher. Anywhere in most of the Rajasthan, Delhi, in many places, that is the culture. That the coaching culture has become a serious sociological disaster. I would agree with you. Whether it is necessary or not, I do not know. After dismissing the coaching centers, ban coaching center for 5 years and see how people are entering into or not. So then we can assess whether they are not whether they are needed or not. But what Ajanta Subramaniam says and I say is that a scare is created by arguing that if you go into the coaching center, you will automatically succeed. Okay. So that's what the impression is given. That is not countered by government. Government never said, look, you don't need coaching center to go into IIT. Has government ever said no? So government supports it. The capitalism supports it. It's a full newspaper page for one boy who scored high in IIT, because that page is sponsored by, that advertisement is sponsored by the coaching center. So that is immoral, unethical, you know. Why are you doing it? But then who asks that? Is it not? So by impression, if you have one boy got first rank because he went to the coaching center, what your parent would think, you yourself think that I should have put my son into that coaching center. So how this culture, how this narrative of it is essential to get into the coaching center to get into IIT, you cannot imagine that private schools have started introducing the IIT training from the 7th standards onwards. Can you imagine? I've never, no parent asked any private school to start IIT coaching from the 7th standard. I got so angry, wrote a letter to the principal, stop this nonsense, I'll take my daughter away from your school. So this is how the general popular culture is such that it gets into whatever is good, whatever is positive, whatever is very positive, important, that gives you whole lot of prestige, social prestige, power, economic thing. So therefore my son goes to America. So all these things would play an important role. Then essentializes the coaching. That's what you have to look at. I would not say that
the society should be changed.
Sorry.
So I think the mentality of the parents and society should be changed. So that something can be.
Everybody plays a role. So that's it. What we have to understand. Probably coaching is not needed, but it's made to believe that it is needed by the positive narratives that are propagated by the corporations, coaching centers, and government. Yeah, government also.
Okay, thank you.
Bharanidharan sir, do you have any questions?
Sir, I had one more question. I wanted to ask, do you think that the politics of deprivation, it goes along with the politics of empowerment for only the benefit of the politicians? Because when we talk about getting people out of poverty or giving them employment, this process is deliberately made so slow, so that because all the politicians, they promise when it comes to election that will do this and that, but deliberately that process is made so slow that actual empowerment never actually happens. And so that in the next election the same agenda is put up by some other party, and they again promise that will empower you, and this goes on and on and on, and actual empowerment, actually it's very slow and doesn't happen. So what do you think?
Yeah, that I agree with you. Because as long as poverty exists, Kandamal, the Kandamal story in Orissa, the amount of money that is pumped into that region by the many governments for its development, it never takes place. That development never takes place. So why? Religion wants poor people to listen to them. People in distress, religion wants. Corporations want people in poverty. Governments wants people in poverty. Otherwise, there are no politics exist, is it not? So you are right. So even if there are progressive governments, say if there is a progressive legislation that is enacted in order to empower the people, emancipate the people, its implementation perhaps would not be in the top person of the government or top section of the government. It has to be done. Who cares? Government has to have an eye on that on everyday basis. They would not care about it. And that's why I say emancipatory schemes. Implementation of the emancipatory schemes has become the responsibility of the activists of those people who come from the deprived sections of the society. They know that even the emancipation program is implemented, its implementation is impossible. So therefore, they fight for its implementation. You can understand that. So whether intentionally governments are keeping the poverty alive, or the people in the deprived sections in poverty certainly is an argument that need to be taken into consideration. I agree with you. So the politics of empowerment need to be understood. So, but however, when it comes to, there are two ways of understanding it, that the progressive governments and the governments which do not care about the deprived section, there are two ways of it. Even the progressive governments are a bit liberal, try to give extra funds to it. In the process of implementation, they are not in charge. That is the number one. So therefore, whether it is a progressive government or the anti-deprived sections government, the responsibility falls onto the people who are supposed to keep an eye on that program. So eventually, they are the ones who. So these happen to be intellectuals, activists, and all that. Then the second important part is people, politicians from the deprived sections of the society. So to what extent they have the ability of making these schemes work? Unfortunately, you can understand their political situation is very precarious. They are, sort of existing in the margins in the dominant political system. So I don't think they will have the voice to look, Prime Minister, you introduced the scheme that is not working well. Why the hell you are not? Can a Dalit MP talk like this? It would never happen. Or Adivasi MP can talk like this. Never happen. So he has to exist within the margins and do whatever they can. That is the precarious situation in trying to. So even the Dalit MPs, Adivasi MPs, the OBC MPs are doing politics of emancipation. Maybe I do not disagree with you if you make that argument. They must be also political, not letting things happen. They can also do that. I would agree with you that also. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. For your
Thank
kind
you, sir.
information, Sudhanshu Segar sir from Orissa and Vaishali ma'am is from Madhya Pradesh. So these two participants. Thank you.
Yes, sir, mentioned about
Any
Kandhamal. There is a KDK Jojana actually. That
Sir, good evening,
mentioned
sir.
about Kandhamal. Yes.
Ronic Chandrika ma'am. Yeah, please.
Sir, I have one doubt, sir. India is bonded with a lot of cultural and ritual practices in each and every state, sir. Is it the reason for caste violation?
Yeah, see, culture rituals are not away from the social hierarchies. They are inbuilt into social hierarchies. Culture and rituals are inbuilt into social hierarchies. So, if you are not respecting the culture that is there in a particular region or nation or a state, you will be criminalized. First of all, culture is very important. We essentialize the culture before we understanding whether it is positive to the humans or negative to the humans. Okay, so justification of the culture. That's what I am saying. First of all, you subject your culture to the scientific scrutiny. Scientific scrutiny is nothing but a simple mind, humanistic understanding of a culture. Okay, so if you are pushing, probably you are a lady, say I have to self-glorify myself because I did something unimaginable. Let me tell because I did it because I wanted to speak about it. Like my daughter came of age recently, my first daughter came of age. So she matured. That's what we said. When a daughter matured, what will you do? You'll have a flexi, you will have a fantastic celebration, all that stuff. So she will be traditionally attired, dressed, kept in a corner of the home. I gave a strict warning that nobody touches my girl. So no celebration. She just is a natural process. She became mature. That's all. So you tell her to take a leave. School is not there, so they didn't have to worry about the school. So this is a revolutionary, rebellious attack on a culture that is inbuilt to our society. So if I allowed that to happen to my daughter, what would have happened? I could also be part of a naturalized culture, which will be very, sort of, I'm keeping her in presence of so many public people, announcing that she came of age. Why the hell she has to do that? Why the hell I have to do that? Is it not? So therefore, when we have the ability of understanding the unnecessity of the culture, you have to try to understand that, eliminate it. I'm not saying that you have reached a position where in a particular point in life you have reached a position, you try to understand what you are today. I would have told my daughter that. Instead of telling that, I called the entire people of the colony and I dressed her, I put her on a chair, and then there will be flexi. What nonsense! She would not understand what is happening, or she would have. So a whole lot of argumentation went through. I said, no, I am not allowing my daughter to be put to that entire circus, what you call maturity celebration. So therefore, what amount of torture she would go through? We see it as a sort of a celebration, something fantastic celebration, dressing her. This dressing, the amount of money I would have paid her on silk, gold, all the dress and function, and I could have used her in a different, that money in a different sort of way. But if I try to, try to prepare her, or try to make up her and try to dress her in a way that will be appreciated by everybody, then I will be a person who is accepting the existing culture. I do not want that. So what happens is that you have to see the problematic areas of the culture, try to keep on eliminating them. You cannot keep on justifying because it is your culture. Your culture or my culture, ultimately, eventually, one human should not suffer from it. That is the ultimate thing. So I'm not saying that culture entirely to be dismissed. That is not the point. But you have to look at the culture time and again. Continuously have to look at the culture, keep examining it. If I am, if I am forced to some sort of an extreme, suffering, why I have to do that? Why, if I am come of age, why the entire university, why entire colony has to know about it? Why entire family has to know about it? Relatives have to know about it? No, I didn't know. There was a situation where there is a sort of a thing. So today there are plenty of alternatives to tell that my girl came of age, she is ready to get married. Who the hell is getting married after getting come of age at this point in time? They are getting married after 25 to 30 years of age. Why the hell I have to tell to the rest of the world that my girl came of age? No, I don't want to. But how many people think like that? That is the point. So this culture, this function should have been eliminated from her life, many girls' life. But people still essentialize it, saying that, look, it is part of our culture. Part of a culture, let the girl tell what she wants. Or, from a different
The voice not.
office. But what about a person? So what about the people who do not have money? They have to borrow the money to celebrate this function. There where I look at, not myself. I am very comfortable. I can spend some crores, some thousands of money, or even to 1 lakh to celebrate my girl coming of age. But that is not the way I look at the culture. I have to look at the culture by looking at the people who are suffering from the culture.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
I think,
I have a doubt.
sir, I'm convinced with the.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes, Vinod, sir.
Okay. Sir, is the caste barrier hinders the people to go into mainstream in the present scenario?
Sorry?
Caste barrier hinders the people to go into mainstream in some parts of India? Caste barrier?
Caste?
Barrier.
This word I'm not getting. I'm sorry. You can type
HINDERS, hindrance.
Oh, caste hindrance, yeah.
To hinders the people into mainstream, like
of course. No, of course. See, publicly, you would not see that happening, but that works under the carpet. That works under the carpet. So invisible ways of caste that hinders someone to grow up, or blocks someone to develop, and blocks someone to become a mainstream person. Mainstream person is a person who is equally recognized by the rest of the society. But if you are that mainstreaming would not take place easily, it will take, it has to go through certain invisible processes. That invisible process, if you understand, For a person from the upper section of the society growing on the ladder of the power, just going up on the ladder of the power is very easy, but that is not the case with the power. That is not the case with the person who is coming from the deprived sections of the society. He or she has to go through so many blocks. Those blocks are not visible, they are invisible.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
My question is that presently the Kerala government is promoting public education and spending more money on public education. Is it sufficient for tackling the corporatization of education?
Absolutely. See, I think that is enough. I cannot say, but it is doing what is expected by the government. See, the amount of money that is spent on the public education is a appreciable amount of money. The kind of Kerala has totally digitized the class systems. But it is the first state to go for digitization of the class or say announced the online classes early during the pandemic. There I had some problems that because I felt like it is imposition of where the people are going up to the roofs of their homes, and I myself has contributed some money to somewhere in Palakkad to a group to buy a laptop. I did some contribution. So in imposing an online class early during the pandemic, I did not like it because first of all you have to provide the infrastructure. Then you have to impose it. Later government of Kerala realized that okay, first of all you have to have infrastructure, then you can go for it. So later it realized and it did well, and it created appreciable public infrastructure to impose the online classes or digitization of classes. So this is a required investment it made, but I think as far as each and every corner of the Kerala is doing well or accessing the digitized education, I seriously doubt. There are sort of so many sections Kerala. There are a lot of communities are left out of the development process, the Adivasis especially. So therefore, whether I seriously doubt it is locating in those areas, but otherwise it had done its duty. It did well in trying to offer what is a system of education that is being imposed by the pandemic. So if it is digital education for everybody, so be it. And it has to be government, not the private. So that it did. That I agree, that I appreciate. But is it enough? I cannot say. Because we do not have the complete picture of whether the digitized education is available to each and every Malayali student. That I do not know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Santosh, sir, you have any questions?
Sir,
yeah.
Reservation policy under threat in near future?
It's a reservation threat. As long as the rights conscious people are existing, they will keep fighting it. But then one has to understand that it is under threat. You can understand how the amount of funds or the space, the channels are being blocked, space is being blocked. In Pondicherry University recently, people who had availed the national scholarships like Rajiv Gandhi scholarship, BC scholarship, minority scholarship were allowed to directly join in the PhDs in Pondicherry University. Then what the university did is it has eliminated all these fellowship holders from the direct joining into PhD and asked them to go through the entrance text. But those people who had got JRFs, they were directly allowed to join in the PhDs. So this is one strategy. You have to understand the strategies of blocking. this keep happening. There will be a power play. There will be interplay between people who have been fighting for social justice, those forces who wanted to block them. It could be a force that is supported by the state, or it could be a force that is supported by the corporation. There will be continuous fight between those people who are fighting for the social justice. Social justice fight will never end, ever end. It is a continuous struggle. I would understand that way, because social monopoly and social justice would never die. They will continue to exist forever.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your attention, and I really enjoyed your session. Now I'll take this opportunity to invite Dr. Angel Blossonia to propose the vote of thanks for the session, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Is it okay? Yeah. Sir, okay, Madan sir, okay, so
Yeah,
I'll go.
thanks a lot, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everybody for listening patiently. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, friends, I think we will wind up this session. I think hope you got the feedback link.
Sir, Madan sir, can
Yeah?
we leave the call?
Sir, you got the feedback link?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In
Okay,
chat
fine.
box,
Yeah,
I
great.
think.
Okay, sir, and we'll meet on tomorrow morning 10 o'clock. And Bharanidharan sir, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, I got the mail, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, sir. And see you tomorrow. And
Thank you,
have a
sir.
good
Thank
evening.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Madan sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Madan sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Great.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.